Tony Caravan.
You've injected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you
Just what you need and not what you don't.
I am your main connection to the switchboard of souls. I'm the magic man.
Yeah, it's going to be.
It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
Yay. I'm totally. Today is a complete flow of consciousness. I get this chair figured out. Thank you for tuning in to my channel. This is the Rock Flux channel.
Rock Flux Live.
Come along, children. Now we're going to have a little music.
Well, let's hear it.
Insert your station call letters here. Here we go.
I gotta go.
You're clear to go. Hey, don't think this sounds really cool. Let's roll. Go. Good morning.
Good morning, folks. Yeah, today is a flow of consciousness. If you could look at the title card today, it's from the movie Leaving Las Vegas with Nicolas Cage, one of the great actors of our time, who truly gets into his characters and is, in a way that's, very unique for this era of so-called Hollywood. And of course, it's Elizabeth Shue who was playing the prostitute in that movie, Leaving Las Vegas. In that scene, the wording on there says, "I picked the right girl," and she had given him a present, and the present was a flask because he had decided he was going to drink himself to death, and he calculated it would take about 30 days or something like that. So, excuse me, an odd movie. But I don't know, one of the best movies ever made, if you can really say that. Let's look at our description for the day. That's the thing you find down below. And on this one, it just says flow of consciousness. And there's a link to my TonyCaravanLive.locals.com account, my TonyCaravanLive.com account, GreatSolarStuff.com account, and my Instagram account now. So you can check that out. And underneath the locals one, it says Ph.D. certificate link. What's that? Well, we've talked about that. So this is a morning show, Doctor of Truth. And it's a PhD, suitable for framing certificate. The artwork is available for download on my local site. Make a slight donation. I don't care, $1. You get a JPEG file. If that's not good enough for you, I can get you a PDF file too. I don't think that particular place, it's hot in here today. I opened the front door to check the temperature, all these tubes and wires to check the temperature. I just got out of the shower too, so you know how that makes you, ups the humidity a little bit. I am not drinking caffeine. I had contemplated walking up to the store, but I decided against. So what I am drinking is just this clear liquid, which is a clear black cherry soda. I alluded to this once before. I don't want to give the brand name out because I don't like dissing some company unless they're really idiots. But on this one is funny. Always free from artificial flavors, sodium, and caffeine. This is what original tastes like. Okay, that's what it says on the can. And it's a diet black cherry soda, naturally flavored and other natural flavors. Okay. And then if you look closely above the nutrition facts in reverse type, barely visible really, it's like almost under the little lip, it says no fruit juice. No fruit juice. All right, let's read that again. Always free from artificial flavors, sodium, caffeine. This is what original tastes like. Hey, we began in California. Yeah, good for you. Diet black cherry, naturally flavored, and other natural flavors. But it says no fruit juice. What are those natural flavors? You see, this is what the FDA like approves. I say this all the time, and people just I don't think they get it. They see those law commercials, about all the pharmaceuticals that they get approved by the FDA that ultimately there are lawsuits against. The media profits with the commercials, and and then people die. The place that has, like I said, I've said this many times, a dozen times, they have the worst track record on the planet. But yeah, as promised, I guess some of you folks didn't think I was going to do it. We're about 8 or 9 shows away. I'm not the exact number right now, sure. 8 or 9 shows away from 100 consecutive, close to 2-hour broadcasts of the morning show. And that earns you a Ph.D., a Doctor of Truth. You can put this on your frame it. And a very expensive. You want to get one of those the gold frame, real big. So it's like super. Like here's certificates here, and then it's got that kind of beveled thing inside, right, with some space. And then there's a big, thick gold frame. The frame around the frame's this big. Put that behind your thing. People go, I didn't know you were a PhD. You had a doctorate. Yeah. Well, you do. If you think about it, 100 consecutive shows, most of them close to 2 hours in length. And it's been the truth, nonstop. I don't know if you can hear that in the background. I'm doing some laundry. I have a doctor's appointment at 9:45 today. It's 5:23 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the former United States. And as I said, this is a flow of consciousness. I really don't have anything much to say, and I don't even have a handkerchief. Yes, I think I do in these pants. I should have put this in the washer too. One of my backup handkerchiefs. The good old-fashioned handkerchief. One of my family's favorite Christmas presents. Pack of 3 or 6 white handkerchiefs. And as I said one time before, I appreciated them. I like using a handkerchief. A gentleman should always have a handkerchief. You never know when there will be a woman in distress. Right? I was listening to the weather forecast, and according to my screen, they're claiming it only got down to 45. And I covered all these things yesterday to the best of my ability with like heavy burlap. So it's the next 2 nights where the frost warnings are issued. Tonight and tomorrow night. 2 more days of horror. That's why I put my Instagram link below. You could check out my Instagram account at Keep Up on the Adventures in Gardening. I also post there when I decide to have like a cocktail hour, happy hour in my bar. So and let's get on with the show. So I really didn't have anything to talk about today. I just I did the certificate thing, yesterday. Oh, I did get a thing from, as predicted, those who have been along this ride. Like I say, I don't know after show 100, which is coming up. It's like I say, 8 or 9 shows away. But I did get a thing from, let's see, DirecTV's collection agency. As I was predicted, they are trying to collect $194.82 from me. The amount owed DirecTV LLC has been placed with such and such collection agency. The above amount is now delinquent and remains unpaid. Send your payment. This is the place that I have the documentation where I returned the equipment, basically 6 months ago. Paid my final bill, returned the equipment 6 months ago. And have spoken in person at least a half dozen times to customer service representatives about it who have said, yes, sir, thank you for giving us the information. I gave them the number, tracking numbers, and all that stuff. And also did the online text, which is a chatbot thing, a number of times where I didn't input the number. And the last time was just this past week. Someone called, I guess, before they sent that out last week. I said, check your records. I know you record everything. So it's funny with this big data, right? So what's that all about? So is this some scam? Is this a scam? And, so I don't really care about my credit rating anymore, though I did get a credit card. And for the purpose, I was going to make sure that my credit rating was high, even though I don't really care about that because I do have a problem with my roof. And I thought, well, maybe I would get at some point down the line if it gets really even worse. I mean, it's pretty bad now, but I've got plastic on the attic floor, which is like finished because, like I said one time, maybe it's a 100-year-old house. Maybe 80 years or so ago or 100 years ago when this was built, that was actually, they used that as a room. So it was like kind of finished off. So there's like flooring down there. So I just put a bunch of plastic in old shirts and such alike to catch the leak of the roof. I mean, it's like the attic would be 3 stories up. That's why I can't personally fix the roof, because the roof itself, then there's an attic on top of that attic. So it would be like going up 4 stories on a roof that has a pitch like this. It's impossible. I mean, just the concept of a ladder to get up that high, is insane. We're talking, I don't know how many feet or whatever, meters. Yeah, so it's it's a little bit of it's just another adventure. So between dealing with the frost the next 2 days and then crafting a letter to that collection agency, which they won't read, and then it'll end up, and then I think they like send these things to magistrates and stuff now. I don't know if you understand this whole process. It's really quite insane what they do. So that's the story. Those are the trials, sometimes tribulations of living at the poverty level. But you just move on.
Of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine.
Yeah. So flow of consciousness. What do you want to talk about? Well, there's no way you can communicate with me right now, so I have to read your mind. And I did scan briefly YouTube, the other title cards this morning. And it's not much. There's really not much going on. I mean, you might say, what's he talking about? All this crazy stuff going on. But not really. It's... Let's see here if I have let's scan. Oh, Bitcoin value today. Let's check that out. 55,000. So, and see what Google is saying. Google News. Oh yeah, we have rockets exploding over Israel, which Of course, Biden is anti-Israel, so, and a weak president, so you're going to have that. There's like unrest all over the world. Some stupid thing about Liz Cheney. Who cares? He's a goofball. U.S. ship fires 30 warning shots at Iranian boats. Yeah, right. And John Kerry is in with the Iranians, and they gave all that money to him. It's all just that's political theater. These are the states with the highest and lowest vaccination rates. Yeah, right. I know my doctor today is going to probably say, I'm going to say, oh, sorry, man. Unemployment is apparently not, employment rate is looking pretty bad, as I predicted to you. Voyager detects plasma hum, as we were trying to say for decades now, that it's a plasma universe. There's no such thing as dark matter, dark energy, or anything of the sort. I don't even believe in there are black holes. I think it's an electric universe. Check the electric universe theory. Thunderbolts Project, if you're curious. That they have some really hard, good science. Of course, some stuff about mass shootings, nonsense on China, 9 killed in Russia, Indian doctors. China is attacking India for sure. They've got the old, they released the Kraken on them, bioweapon. Elon Musk sending Dogecoin into space after some SNL joke smacked it on the nose. I have no idea what that is. Apple seeds third betas of iOS and iPad 14.6 to developers. My old iPhone now won't even take the 13. And so there's some apps I can't even put on it. And that gives me some ideas to talk about, because these are some themes we've talked about in the past. And it's the idea of the technology of the day. Forget about politics. I just read that because I was just curious to see if there was any world happenings. It's the usual stuff. I used to tell people a long time ago, before I used to say, because there were times in my life where I was away from the news, or just away from, when I say away from the news, I mean I was working on creative projects, which means I didn't see a newspaper or a TV or anything of the sort for like months and months at a time, sometimes as long as 6 months. And I had no interest in it, so I wasn't even asking people or anything like that. And I would tell people, I'd say, when I finally got back somewhere and I was sitting on some sofa and somebody had a TV on and there was the news, or I was at some cafe and there was a newspaper, and you see the news, the front page news. And I remember telling somebody, saying, you could be away from this stuff for a year or 5 years, and all it is the same stories, but the names and places have changed, right? And they call it news, like it's new, right? But it's the truth. And I mean, it's tragic. A lot of what is reported, I wouldn't call it news. A lot of what is reported is tragic. That's for sure. It's tragedy. But it's preventable tragedy, because the media just profits on it, considers it content to sell cars and pharmaceuticals. And then the ads by the law firms telling you the pharmaceuticals killed people. So, it's a total lack of empathy and, conscience on their part, as I talked about yesterday. But it's the same stories. And so instead of anything ever being done about it by the people who make these proclamations and promises, campaign promises and all that stuff, that's why I'm no longer interested in politics. Because the reality is they're all of the, whether both sides, of this counterfeit coin that we call politics are just part of this organized crime syndicate and are subject to the corporatocracy. You know, they're basically, to use they're whores. They're paid whores. Some people don't like to hear that word, but mercenaries at best. Yeah, it's nuts. And so, it seems like we're back into the cycle now, because it changes with these various, waves. Though we're heading into a global authoritarian, complete, end of civilization as we've known it, in two ways. The first being the World Economic Forum Great Reset, which is, like I said, it's being pretty much cemented as we speak. The other one is the solar problems that we have with our sun, our star. So, but yeah, look what's going on. Rockets in Israel. We've seen that before, right? So unfortunately, that tragedy, has begun again. We had a respite on that for a while. Right? Shooting over the bows of Iranian boats. Heard that before. Right? Apparently, there were rocket parts coming down, falling into India, Chinese rocket parts as well, just to exacerbate the problem with this plague that seems to be going after India, conveniently at a time when India and the communist Chinese have been clashing, having border clashes. Interesting. And interesting how it came here over a year or so ago, when we were having clashes with the communist Chinese, right? Fort Detrick, Wuhan Virology Lab, WHO, Bill Gates, Fauci, vaccine profiteers. Sound familiar? Same old story. Washer's in spin mode right now.
Can we use the network to transmit a message?
Yeah, I don't see why you can't. I guess clipping my fingernails on live TV would not be pushing things a little bit too far. So I was thinking back to when I had many years ago, when I applied for security clearance in DC, when I was in DC, the greater DC area. And a job that I had taken, but I left. Tying this into 2 shows ago, where I had Mulder on the cover and the recent releases of the Navy UFO videos and photos, and then the Pentagon confirming that, this is the truth. This was true and real. These are true photos and videos, and they've really been encountering these alien craft. And this was many moons ago. And I don't ever recall signing some kind of non-disclosure agreement, because I had taken a job with a subcontractor. All right. There was obviously a military subcontractor. I happened to be at the time one of the few people that knew how to use a particular device, which over the years I had gotten some interesting jobs with. I think I have a picture of it in here. I think it was this book, wasn't it? If it wasn't this, it was the second. It's worth showing because it's kind of a mind blower. This is my second book, The Nonconformist, and that's the second March on Washington. And I don't know if you can see. I took that picture myself. That was the first time when the Capitol was under construction. If you look closely, you can see like scaffold around the Capitol building. That's when I lived there. That's what it looked like. I took that photo. But I saw out my window last night before I was going to bed. My neighbor was I go to bed early since I got up at 4 today. That my neighbor and her daughters or something, these people that I'm trying to, build this wall because they're loons. There's a tree that's on the fence. See, I try to there's something in here called The Story of My Life. It's like my Story of My Life Part 2 or something. And I know I have a picture of this device, which will make this story much more, understandable. Let's see if I can find it. It's got to be here. And there we go. Like I say, if Google had their act together, YouTube Studio, I could maybe just post this on the screen. See, up top is a machine. You see how there's you could kind of tell that this is a screen, right? You see that? And there's like a keyboard built into this, below. And then on the far side are discs, big floppy discs, like giant floppy disk, if you know what a floppy disk is. Down below is like a bellows camera, and then there's some paste up things. That's like waxers. You used to wax stuff, but that's not. The most important thing is this device up top. It's called the CompuGraphic. My laundry just spun out, but it could wait before I put it in the dryer. So, because I knew how to work one of these machines, because I said I was the son of a printer, right? So I had a graphics background. And I learned how to use one of these things. But not... Where did I learn? This is right before This is before desktop publishing. Let me just turn this on. I know this show's a little discombobulated. Okay. That weird light in the background. This thing is the original Mac there. All right. I have one of my CDs is in front of it, so you can't see the whole thing. And it's the old telephone there and Mulder's poster up there. Okay, but the original Mac from the 1984 commercial, that's like the original Mac that came out like the following year, so to speak. The bright light on this thing. This is this NOAA radio that charged your cell phone. AM FM has this solar charger here. That also, if you open it up way up, it also has like a reading light on it. It's a pretty crazy thing. You can crank charge it, solar charge, do whatever you want. The things they do for $35. TonyCaravanLive.com. So, I knew how to work this machine. It was basically a typography machine, typesetting, But it was nothing like you would see today, because it wasn't WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. There was no GUI, graphical user interface. Okay. So if you're viewing this on a tablet, laptop, desktop, phone, right? That all has a GUI on it. All right. Gives you the impression of something out of nothing instead of a bunch of ones and zeros, or just, the machine, the code type of thing. Well, this was like you typesetted, but you had to have the code, you had to insert code to say if you want, you just didn't, everything had to be coded. So you had to know code as well to define parameters and all that kind of stuff. It just wasn't, you had it. It was intense. And eventually I got pretty good at it. Well, anyway, I knew how to use one of these things. Had applied for my security clearance, because anybody planning to go to DC, I mean, I don't know what it's like today, but I mean, at that time, it's like you got it. That's one of the first things you want to do is get a security clearance, because most of the jobs, the good jobs, you had to have, we're all somehow tied into the government. So they wanted you to have like some kind of level of security clearance. And if you plan, and you never know if you're planning to work your way up the ladder, So I was just, I got my security clearance. Prior to that, this is another weird story. This is strange stuff. I'm not like breaking any kind of laws by telling you some of this stuff. This is just weird stuff. See, I don't care talking about any of this stuff because I'm done. I'm out of that whole game. And I gotten a letter from the CIA. So anybody who would like knows the CIA, like if you don't know the CIA, you don't know what I'm talking about. So, and I don't know why I didn't save this thing, or where somebody maybe, I don't know, somewhere along the line. It's just like I moved around so much that I lost so many things. I didn't really have an attachment to material things all that much. I mean, I enjoyed the things I had, but when I moved, and a lot of times I was moving because of, just changing a job, changing a relationship, just experiencing, life, living the world. I don't know. I was, like I said, I was another term they use in the printing and publishing industry. I was a journeyman type. And which has, more than just journey, if that's something you could look up. And so, I got this letter one time. This is before I went to, I think this was before I was in DC. It could have been after, I don't know. But I'm just going to mention this just to give some people a perspective, because I lived and worked in DC. I lived in Capitol Hill. And so I get this envelope, and there's how there's a letterhead on the top of a letterhead. There's, at least in the old times, it was usually the same thing. Usually there was a logo at the top, right? So I open up this like nondescript envelope with really no return address on it, right? Postmarked from, I don't know, Virginia, I don't know, Langley. But maybe not. I don't know. I don't remember. It's a very long time ago. And the letterhead, the top part of the letterhead was folded down, right? And I think it was enclosed in just a white sheet of paper on top of that. So the top of the letter was folded down, so you couldn't see the logo, and that was folded back into letter form. And I think there was a white sheet of paper covered over top. And so when you unfold it, when you lifted up that, with the way it was flapped over, it was the CIA logo. And basically, what the letter said is, in effect, it was the disavowing letter. you know, and saying there'll be no, and we're disavowing, you, and there's no record of this, no record of this correspondence or our dealings will be in accordance with company policy or whatever. No record of our interactions or this correspondence will be kept. And maybe it told me to destroy it. I forget. And at that point, I would have done what they said. So maybe I shredded the thing and destroyed it or burned it. I'm just trying to give you the idea of the world I was in there for a little while. So I had the security clearance, and I got this job working for this contractor. Like I said, I'll be very vague about this. And I showed up. I was given a code. So I pulled into this weird building with no windows whatsoever. Wasn't really a big building. All right. Big enough. But I mean, it wasn't a skyscraper or anything like that. And it was outside of DC. It was in that DC, it was inside the Beltway for sure. But I mean, it was in that odd, DC triangular thing or whatever. And so I showed up, punched in my number, my individual number. That's how you open the door, to get in the door. You see this stuff now. This is like 35 years ago. Let's see. Well, I hate that. Yeah, this is like 40. This is like, a long time ago. So you see this stuff now in shows, you see, and it's stuff is like, man, the technology. This is what this story is about, and I'm not going to get into too much detail of this. So they had that back then, So I had my security code to get in. Door opens by itself, type of thing. Yeah, this is a long time ago. This is where the tech was. So I'm going to get ready. It's completely dark. You can't talk to anybody. I was met by the person that hired me, okay, and took me to a station, like a area, with one of those machines I showed you, and gave me a stack of these floppy disks. And my job, and I had to do something with them. Okay, forget exactly what. This is a real long time ago. So anyway, I put in these discs, like a disc. And, you're separated, and the room is entirely dark. But there's other people in there, right? But you can't talk to anybody, all right? This was like highly, compartmentalized right to the people you worked with. And you could take a lunch break, and there was like this lunch area, but only one person at a time could go in this area. And that area was lit. And there was like some food vending machines, or you could bring your own lunch, sort of thing. And you had X amount of time. You sat in that room, and you left with nothing, threw your garbage out in there, and you went back to your station. And this, like I say, this is a very long time ago. And some of the images, most of the images that I was seeing I was young, really young, super young. Okay, this is me starting out in DC. In fact, I was going down there. I was trying to like reconnect with some college girlfriend or something goofy like that. It was like a fool's errand, really. All right. That was like how I first went to D. That was like my motivation initially. And so I got this job, and it was all space related stuff, you know, spacecraft, space stations. That's all I can tell you. Well, anyway, I didn't stay there long because I was young and I couldn't hack. I couldn't hack the idea of just sitting there, not talking to anybody, sitting at this station, working on this ridiculous, bizarre stuff that was so compartmentalized that you didn't even know what you were dealing with. And it would be like, spending 8 hours a day, not talking to anybody, going into this little room, the only lit room in the building, which was a tiny glass, and it was all glass. All four walls were glass. So I guess you're being observed, so you can't like take anything out. That was another thing. I just realized that was like an interesting thing. It was the only lit room in the building, but it was all glass walls. So you were in a fishbowl when you ate your lunch. And then you go back to your station and you just work on this stuff that was like sci-fi. Really sci-fi. And so I'm like, this isn't for me. And so I ended up looking for other work. And that's how I ended up working for Roy Cohn on Capitol Hill, in his office / townhouse thing. And then that was a whole other chapter. And part of that was because I did have the security clearance. They were fine with me being there because senators, a lot of people working, in government would come into that townhouse, and I would drive Roy Cohn to various meetings that were, I don't know if they call them clandestine, but I mean, they were basically government type of things. And I never, I could tell you those stories, because they're just vague, and it's a typical Washington story. That stuff goes on every day. But just to give you an idea. Eventually I left left DC for New York, I believe, and got a job working with Columbia, which was a CIA recruiting center. I mean, it's crazy. Ow, I just bashed my leg against my metal desk. So, when this stuff came out about UFOs, this is like a continuation of 2 shows ago, saying, hey, why are they releasing all this? Is this disclosure? And I didn't think of this stuff at the time when I was doing the show. I just thought of it. And this is just a flow of consciousness. I'm just like winging this. I have these books, I have these things. And, it's, so yeah, it's not surprising that, that they're disclosing this information now. The question is, what's the end game? What's the plan? And why are they doing it? I don't know. I've been so removed from that stuff that I have no idea. I have no idea. All I can tell you is that if the technology, 40 years ago was so far advanced beyond sci-fi then, which was probably not, was at least 50-year-old technology, even, you could say, probably. Then you can imagine 50 years later now, what's going on and the level of technology. It's kind of crazy. And that's why I say you don't know what you don't know. And basically, for the most part, everything you know is wrong. And so people just don't get it. So I trust no one. And so I've basically taken the thing where I'm out of politics. I'm out of, I'm not interested in the government. I'm not interested in any of that stuff anymore. And like I started this whole thing out with, is these are repetitive stories. The news is is a cycle, right? And if you go back to the 80s, you'll see missiles fired on Israel. I mean, you'll see clashes between, boats in, off the Iranian coast with U.S. ships, and, especially in the oil era. All of these things. In other words, it's the same stories. It's just different names, different players, and maybe different positions. It's the same with these active shooters and these other events and stuff and these diseases. It's like a different thing. It's not, it was SARS 1 before, now it's SARS 2. That's what it is. I had the tested negative. But that's what it was. I've said, I showed that already on this thing, my test results. SARS 2. SARS. It's not a new thing. It's not novel either. It's not, it's that's. So I don't know. This video could get taken down. Misrepresentation. It's like, I'm sorry, man. You don't know what you're talking about. Google, Alphabet, YouTube Studio, telling me I'm misrepresenting. You don't know what's going on. You have no idea of the truth. What is real? You have an idea of, what's a better way of saying it? The news media. You're a delivery boy for grocery store clerks, right? That's what like Google News is. It's a delivery boy for grocery store clerks. These people in charge of. That's why I say big tech is a joke. It's part of the corporatocracy and the world crime syndicate. It's an international crime syndicate because there is no technology there. I mean, everything they have is stolen, or we created ourselves. We created 50 years ago. From the internet on up to things you're seeing happen now. Its technology existed. And they're just taking credit for it. It's like what this concept of disclosure. In other words, they gradually bring things out. I used to be in the know about a lot of this stuff, like in technology in the corporate world. I knew some corporate spies too. A lot of people don't understand that world too. There's a whole world of spying going on within corporations. And it's on the level of like Mission Impossible type of stuff. And I had known people and that was a crazy world. That like Mission Impossible was like real. People watch those things and they think, oh, that's just like Tom Cruise thriller type of thing. And it's like, no, man, you should see what goes on in the corporate world. And yeah, people are getting killed. All kinds of stuff is going on. This is billions of dollars. The corporatocracy, the Davos set, they have no respect for life. This is money and power. This is the ruling elite of the world. It's an organized crime syndicate. Like I say, they profit on the heroin trade. The world is not, everything is wrong and you don't know what you don't know. And these people work for these Silicon Valley companies and they have the audacity to say, oh, you're misrepresenting something, right? But they don't know. It's like the fact checkers. The fact checkers don't know what they're talking about, because of course, the information, the verification, the true verification is classified, and they're not privy to it, and they don't have clearances. So they're like claiming, oh, this is, yeah, according to what? Yahoo News, Google News, CBS, the New York Times, Washington Post, that constantly every week are printing retractions, right, of stories every week. Retractions of headlines that like get the whole country in an uproar. And then there's, page 10, a retraction of what was the above the fold headline. Push technology out to all your news apps on your little, precious smartphones. And these people, like, they'd have no idea. It's like, you don't know what's going on. You think congressional hearings have anything to do with anything? Like, there's any truth there? No. I mean, Congress is bought and sold. I mean, they're owned. They spend more time raising money. It's a campaign contribution world. They're either, relying on certain companies to give them their campaign financing, so then they're beholden to them, or they're outright basically agents of the corporatocracy, or part of the Davos set. And it's an organized crime syndicate that runs the world. That's why I get one viewer on these things, 2 views. I see some of my videos have gotten 16 views, 14 views, 12 views. Imagine like how, like, the breaking news, if you go back, like I say, we're coming up on almost 100 live consecutive every day broadcast, in which each one I usually lay some kind of little bombshell, like I just talked about a few moments ago. An eye opener, put it that way. Not so much a bombshell, but an eye opener, but based on a firsthand experience, right? And people are, and I'm getting like 2 views, 4 views. Imagine that. Like, what's going on with that? Yeah, that's pretty funny. That's why I'm not going to continue this thing after, I think after the 100. I think we'll take it to the 100. We'll award the Doctorate of Truth certificates, so you get your Ph.D. It says specifically, has successfully completed the doctorate program, Ph.D. in 21st century human behavior / indoctrination, conditioning, and propaganda by the global corporatocracy. Doctorate of Truth. 100, you've attended 100 online classes, seminars. It's quite a thing to have done for those who've done it. Some people have. A handful of people have. I mean, attended enough classes to deserve to earn their doctorate. Yeah, it's a pretty crazy world. It's a mad world. It's like, that's what the title of this is. In a world gone mad, ... like that, like those movies. In a world gone mad. Right. So yeah, guys like me, there's, people know that. It's like anybody who's been involved in the the service, who've been, more than just a grunt, so to speak, knows what's going on, knows that there's stuff going on, and has seen technology and is aware of stuff that it's like that people back in the former United States are just clueless about. People are living in the 1980s or 90s. The average person is 20 or 30 years behind, excuse me, what's really going on in the world. And this whole idea, this diversion of, with flus and politics, that kind of thing is laughable. But I mean, laughable in one sense, but tragic in another sense, because, there are victims. And there are repercussions of this global climate, or the global climate lie, which is, again, I have firsthand knowledge of. I was calculating it yesterday because I keep, people like me who keep records, so my record book. And I was calculating that winter now in areas that used to have the 4 seasons, right? Because remember, there are places that don't have 4 seasons. When you're in, it's like Florida. Florida's always been hot. They occasionally get a fluke, there have been like a fluke frost that's hurt the orange crop, but that's like once a fluke thing. It's like the Texas thing. Things happen every now and then. That's just the planetary things. It's nothing to do with climate change or CO2. And these things have been happening, way back. If you listen to, one of the things about listening to NOAA radio is like you hear records. And what people don't talk about is that a lot of the heat records were set back in the 30s, like the Dust Bowl era and stuff. And these liars and people now who are trying to push things as if like, in recent times, things have escalated and it's gone up 1 degree Celsius or 2 degrees Celsius, or whatever their game is. Lies. It's at what I was thinking of, and I was like, documenting this. And there are other people out there that document this. This isn't like, this fraud that's being perpetrated on the American people is, you can research it if you take the time. Just that people just follow memes and headlines, or a teacher. Teachers, I hate to say it, but at one time I held teachers in high esteem, but teachers today are, they're just worried about their pensions, make sure they get the test results so that the school gets its funding. Right. And half of them are brainwashed themselves. I know teachers that are like scared crapless about this plague thing. They don't even know, but they've never bothered to open a virology. They probably have a library access to, Nexus, Lexis, or some of these like databases. They could easily research, virology and things like that, but they don't. So they're just like, they're parroting what they hear in the media or what they're told by the administration buildings. But in areas that are 4 season areas, like I said, northern Canada is not going to have the 4 seasons, right? The tropics aren't going to have the 4 seasons. That they're either tropical or frozen zone. So we're not talking about that, And those places have remained consistent, by the way. The North Pole is still frozen. The Arctic Ocean's still frozen. Antarctica is still frozen. All right. There's been melting in Antarctica, but they found that was like geothermal activity. In other words, stuff underneath, heating, So, and I have a connection with both the North Pole and Antarctica, direct, firsthand. So, anyway, in areas that used to have 4 seasons, which were pretty much equal, now it's about 6 to 7 months of winter. So more than half the year is winter, and has been for quite some time now, despite all this stuff they've been telling you, right? Very short. Springs are almost non-existent. You're lucky if it's a month of spring. You're lucky if it's a month of fall, right? It brings you up to 9. And then you have like 3 months of summer. It's basically June, July, August. And that's it. That equals 12 months. But yeah, more than half the year is now winter. And they're trying to tell you that there's global warming and climate change is heating the planet, and it's because of human activity and CO2. But the records show different. The charts, the graphs, they all show a different story for those willing to research and look at the facts. And it's not something you can do. These people, fact checkers, they'll go to a site that's prejudicial, right? Like the UN IPCC is not a reputable source because they've been caught lying. All right. So they've been discredited. It's the same with you can't quote the FDA for anything because they're basically have been, have approved more dangerous food, drugs, and chemicals than, that have caused so much death and injury that it's beyond comparison. That agency may be one of the single most worst agencies to have ever existed on the planet. It's like the WHO isn't objective. The World Health Organization. And they've had to come out and apologize, and they constantly they're like, they waffle and they flip-flop just like the CDC flip-flops. So when these people accuse people of misrepresenting things, or they go to some so-called alleged fact checker, and they find out that the fact checker is supported by people that are pushing an agenda. Well, that's not a fact checker. That's basically, that's the fox in the hen house or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's insanity. There's no logic to it. But that's what they do today. And then usually 6 months later or shorter, sometimes longer, the person or persons or companies or whatever that were abused and accused usually are vindicated. But there's never any effort to, make that public. It's fascinating. And so that's why I said, yesterday, you live well, survive and thrive, keep your quality of life as good as possible. And the only reason I basically have gone on this, journey of, which we're coming up on 100 consecutive morning shows. a real is that I just wanted to get the truth out to you folks, and that hopefully these things will survive in a sense that at least maybe future people will have perspective to understand how did this happen? How did the US fall? How did it become a totalitarian police state or authoritarian global governance took over? You know, how did the world Western civilization fall, and how was it, by this global crime syndicate, international crime syndicate? Uh, that's the whole purpose of this. Now, knowing a thing is, you know, it's not a big deal. For me, it's nice to know it, but I don't obsess over it because it's the same as what I'm saying about the news. See, you can look at this and say, well, I don't know, that guy, he's crazy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, I tend to disagree with that. But so what? If that's what you think, that's fine. But why? But you're watching the nightly news every night or reading your smartphone's news app and you're believing that? Well, what's the difference? Who are those people? They're not, who are they? Who are these people with their Starbucks coffee at the Alphabet, Google, YouTube Studio? Their sensors and algorithmics, filing and pushing something somewhere so then a human may look at it or something. Who are they? How many books have they written? Have they written 10 books? Have they traveled the world over? Have they put in time working in DC, New York, LA? Right? No. They just got a job working for Google. And maybe before that, some stupid internet company. See, that's the thing. The world is being run by inept people without experience, real world experience, people who haven't traveled the world. Their travels are vacations because they make so much money, they get to go on vacations. I traveled the world, and they weren't vacations. I traveled the world on doing projects and working on things. So it's very interesting, when you think about that. Like I say, this show is just a flow of consciousness. I'm just like winging it. Today is I've got to do some shopping. I got a doctor's appointment, which is only about 15 minutes or so. Pain to go there though. Got to put the old eyes without a face thing on. And then I got to go to the grocery store because I take a hike. First of all, I need to get a little bit exercise because it's been raining and cold and I haven't really been out of the house that much. So I've got some things to do. So after this show, I'll watch this show. I usually watch the playback. Something to do. Like I say, I enjoy it. Gives me ideas. I'm working on. I have a new book coming out at the end. It'll be out by the end of the year. And so these shows also work. Help me work out ideas and are the inspiration and the thought process and remembering things. When you start telling a story, things come out that because you get into a zone. It's how memories are stored or kind of how you remember things. You start telling the story. And it's like a thing that people who do human behavior studies and stuff and profilers, they do that. You take someone back to a place and a time, and you let it start flowing, but you allow them to like look at more things that are not as obvious, but are still somewhere stored in your memory, and you remember something. It's like when I told that story earlier about that lunchroom. It's like I was visualizing it, and I was going, yeah, that's right, they were glass walls. At the time it didn't even occur to me, because I didn't even think about it. And I haven't thought about that since I just retold that story. But yeah, it was glass walls. I guess they were concerned about people, taking some information out. Whereas I'm like, I didn't care about that. I just didn't like being there because it was boring. It was boring. It was really boring to sit for 8 hours every day. What kind of job is that? It was a good paying job too. Most of those contractor jobs pay well. But, no amount of money is going to get me to sit in darkness for, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and not have any interaction whatsoever with anyone. And not be able to talk about what you're working on. That's like, and it wasn't as if anything there was, to me, as far as I saw in my compartmentalized area, was anything of, national security or anything of that sort. So I get these, I do this all the time. So yesterday was like, apart from getting that collection agency for something that I have to prove, here's one. Exercise your financial options. They always have this thing in there to make, like I say, the porch thieves steal your identity. You're pre-qualified for a secured loan from $1,500 to $10,000. Right. And it's got all like my private information on here. Right. I mean, I tear it up just as a, meaningless thing. And here's another one. Platinum. What are they up to with this? So my idea is that they're trying to get people totally hooked on credit again. These are the real scary ones, like this one, like this Indigo one, because they prey on people who are fools. Like, look at the interest. This is one of those 29.9%. So basically 30% interest. Think about that, 30%. I've already seen one of these things that had 36% interest. Annual fee, $125. Thereafter, $125. And here's the kicker. For example, based on your credit line of $500, your initial available credit will be $375. So what that means is they're going out to you, some random person, and you decide to get this credit card. And the day you receive it, you're paying 30% on $125 already. compounded like monthly or daily or whatever, some sick thing they do. Right. And so these people get in like crazy debt. And it's like some kind of game they play. Like that's what these collection agencies too. Like the corporatocracy, they're really shrewd. They it's like I say, understanding the game. That's what a lot of these morning shows have been about too. Is letting you know that there's this game. And once you understand the game, then you can, you're better aware, and you got to play by the rules or be aware of the rules. Like I say, avoid them as much as possible. But it's basic finance, and just shady accounting, loopholes and all that kind of stuff. So what they're doing is they want these people to get in debt because they make profit. Like they have ways of writing off this debt. Like they usually manage to collect, put it this way, I'm babbling here. Someone gets the card and they'll probably pay them at least for the first 6 months. There's some people that just burn them, right? And hats off to them. Some people, they get the credit card, hey, let's go out and shop. And then they never even make a payment on it. Okay, that happens. And there's collection agencies involved in that stuff. But it doesn't matter. That type of individual is like, statistically, they've got them figured in. That's the loss, and it's a write-off anyway. Their profits are so high on, in the financial industry. And then they're tied into this collections thing. So some people get it and they will pay actually for a year or so. So in effect, that the company makes a profit. Remember, $1 profit by 1 million people is $1 million. Like I always try to explain to people about Walmart. People say, "But how do they make money? They're selling macaroni and cheese for only 35 cents a box or something." I said, it doesn't matter that they only make a penny on that, maybe, or something. I said, it's the amount of stores they have throughout the country and their overall gross income. So if they gross, let's see if they publish this number. I don't know if this would be published. Let's see. Walmart's gross revenue. Walmart net sales. Well, the fiscal year ended January 31, 2021. Walmart's global net sales amounted to $555 billion US dollars. Okay. Over half a trillion dollars. Make sure I get it. They brought in over $500 billion. Actually, 555 billion. So when you bring in that kind of stuff, and and then let's see, they did have Walmart gross profit. And their retailers' global profit margin amounted to 24.3%. What was Walmart's profit in 2019? I mean, this says millions of US dollars, 101. I mean, the figure is just so outrageous. I can't even, in my non-caffeinated mind, can't even figure it out. It's like, if this is 1 million, it was like 130 billion. All right, profit, something like that. in 2019, 129 and change. So, and then they've got all these write-offs, right? And they have their own financing things and different, things they've acquired in the way they do things. The same with these financial companies. So what I'm saying is that the volume, it doesn't matter the per item. When you're a big company, big financial institution or a big retailer or big pharma, right? It doesn't matter. Any of those things. It's not the profit on an individual item that you look at. Say, how are they making money selling this stuff so cheap? Or, or this credit card. These people aren't paying this, that, the other. No, you have to look at the aggregate, the overall. And so if you're bringing in over $500 billion, you're going, and you have a 25%, close to a 25% profit margin overall, then, you're making, 129,000, whatever profit billion. You see? So they're, these are $100 billion corporations. That's what the corporatocracy is. And that's the same with all the rest of these crazy companies. And that's what I'm saying. And so when you get to that level, it's a different world. It's a breakaway civilization. And people don't understand that. And you may think, oh, well, they didn't get much from me, or I just buy the cheap stuff. But in the overall bottom line, they end up winning. That's how it works. They win. I'm going to put this stuff over here because the cat's crawling around. Are you planning on trying to come over here? Are you going to crawl by? Come here. Let's show you on TV. Yeah, I know. You just hit something. Come here. I know. It's so terrible. Let's see. There's the microphone. Show your face. See if you're purring. Are you purring? You hear that? Purring cat? That's a purring kitty. Okay. Be free. Be free. So, yeah, that's the thing that people just don't understand. Have a seat. And so the corporatocracy just makes money. And they're billions and billions of dollars. And it's a breakaway civilization. And when you're at that level, you're the ruling elite. And you don't care. And also life is cheap. And that's why I always, bring in my thing to practically every show. So we're just cattle to them. We do what what we need to do in order for them to meet their bottom line. And it doesn't really matter. So in some instances, so I always say take advantage, but it's like you're not getting over on them, because a lot of people see what happens is a guy like me, when I go to Walmart or a place like that, I literally buy the cheapest things. That's why I told the story about a couple of weeks ago where I went with someone who was getting the old thing in the arm, and it was near a Walmart. And so they dropped me off at Walmart. I said, yeah, I'll go with you. Just drop me off at Walmart, however long it takes you. And then, call me. I don't have a cell service anymore, but I have a Wi-Fi app phone, VoIP, voice over IP. And Walmart has Wi-Fi. I said, just call me, right? And let me know, and I'll let you know where I am in the store. Because I'm just going to spend a half hour or 40, a long time. I'm just going to go up and down every aisle. And when I see that 45-cent paintbrush, that's what I'm going to get. the 50-cent pack of index cards, I'm going to grab that. Same with like food items and stuff like that. I'll get the dollar something pack of Swiss cheese or something, as opposed to paying $2 or $3 for it at the supermarket. And so I'll go in and I'll get, and I'll have this wide collection of all this stuff, but like everything, it's like going to the everything's a dollar store. It's like basically I just, I bought everything, every cheap thing you could buy, but things I needed, and it's like, oh, like I'm getting over on them almost, but I'm not really getting over on them. Because I bought some of the cheapest, lowest profit margin items in the store, I still added to the overall bottom line gross revenue, number one. And that's how it's all calculated. That's how the whole system works. So there's small profit, but there's, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people like me added all up, like I say, and taken in the aggregate, yields, these people make over $100 billion in profit. And that's how it was. Like Amazon made, what was it, 600 billion? I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to look that one up because it doesn't really matter. They're all in the hundreds of billions of dollars in profit. I mean, it wasn't Apple approaching being $1 trillion company. I'm sure Alphabet is like $1 trillion. I mean, these are ridiculous numbers. They used to say Exxon was like the richest corporation, back when it was, they broke maybe 100 million or something like that. It's like currently these places are totally out of control. And that's, I say, it's a breakaway civilization. You're cattle to them. And they wanted global corporatocracy. And if people get out of control, it's going to be a totalitarian police state. Your worst nightmare realized. Worst sci-fi dystopian nightmare realized. And most people won't care. It's like I ordered from that place. If you're afraid to go out of your house. I heard a statistic yesterday. And, like I say, you can't verify any of this. Some of these things you just can't even verify. But it was a statistic, apparently it was a government statistic, that something like close to 25% of the people, have not gone out of their house at all during this plague. And that was from a respectable source where I saw that. And these people that have built these, literally and if they do go out, they have a hazmat suit on or something that crazy. All right. And remember, 99+% of Americans did not die from this. 99% plus did not die. But like I say, the figures lie, liars figures. They throw numbers at you. But the numbers they throw out there pale in comparison to the annual deaths from heart disease and cancer and the other things that are, like I said yesterday, there were 6 million car crashes a year. It's crazy. Automobile deaths, suicides, diabetes, pneumonia, weird diseases you don't even like. I've looked at the CDC charts and things you don't even like know what they mean, or you just would hardly believe that, 100-some thousand would die from this or that. And again, they add all these things up and they say, oh, well, and that other statistic that's out there now that the average age of a person who's died from this plague is the average life expectancy of a human being right now in the US. So it's like right around the same number. Now, that alone should, the 99% plus, who didn't die, and then the idea that the average age is the average life expectancy, and you've got maybe 25% of the country haven't left their houses in over a year because of fear mongering, and because they've got these numbers on the screen scaring the death out of people. Yeah, it's crazy. It's really crazy. 6:46 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the former United States, May 11th, the calendar year 2021. In a world gone mad. Only in a world gone mad could you have this kind of thing, right? Indoctrinated, conditioned, propagandized. It's literally unbelievable, for somebody like me. It's like unbelievable. And when I talk to people, it's the same, it's the same thing. They're so caught up in it. You can't talk about it. I guess that's why I do these shows. Because it gives me a chance to talk about it, work out these things, and, because normally I might not even look up that Walmart thing. So now that's in the back of my mind. So when I'm writing my book, then I'll research more specifically into, you see, so it I guess in a way, these things are helping me as much as they have the potential to help you understand what's going on. But yeah, it's crazy. But in the in the end, all that matters is that you live a good life, have a good quality of life, and that you don't allow yourself to be manipulated, controlled, deceived, lied to. That you get by as best as possible, live the best possible life you can live, all things considered. And I've been able to pretty much get through this thing without it being a burden. Certain things, like I said, when you really look at it, a guy like me, we got a total of $3,200 free money from the government. All right. And I put that to good use. Like I didn't wait, a lot of people just wasted that money. Right. You know how people are. Hey, we got, $1,400, in the bank account. Let's go get this. Right. Let's get a new washer and dryer, even though the ones we have work just fine. Or let's get that new bright and shiny object thing. Or let's just order takeout for 2 weeks straight. But I look at it and I got $3,200 tax free, right? They've got all these crazy delivery services now, which I've talked about, right? Where you could order grapes. I mean, it's insane. And so I really, in my mind, apart from having to put on the old thing, going to the grocery store and a doctor's office today, but I'm just putting a bandana on, man. I could breathe through that thing. And they accept that, which just goes to show the absurdity of the whole thing. They should say, oh, you can't come in with that. But like I put on the other ones and I couldn't breathe in them. So I'm not going to not be able to breathe. yeah, it's pretty crazy. So it's getting daylight. I got to put my wash in the dryer and feed the birds outside. So I think we'll probably just end it there. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. We're getting close to the 100. So watch some of the older videos if you're new to this. And like I said, this was just a free flow, just a ramble on. Probably tomorrow I'll have some more, targeted, directed thing. But sometimes it's nice to just let your mind wander and flow of consciousness. It's a healthy thing to do. It's a way of sharing too. All right. Cheers. Take care. Talk to you soon.